Hello. Hi. I've been having some issues, so just bear with me. This is I'm learning this process, and it's been exciting. It's been very challenging, but I'm happy that you're here. So welcome to Spiritual Impulse. My name is Edith, and I am so happy that you're joining me tonight. At Spiritual Impulse, we inspire, we support, and empower women and children to break free from fear, act with clarity, grounded in faith, and experience true freedom. This space is for you if you're experiencing self doubt, going through life transitions, or fearing the unknown. Here we embrace spirit led resilience and transform challenges into new possibilities. So, tonight we're diving into a critical question. And that question is, what happens if your Social Security is suspended, whether you live abroad or in the United States? Now, just imagine waking up one day and discovering that one primary source of income has disappeared. You're checking your checking account and you realize your balance is low. And when you do some checking, you find out that I didn't receive my Social Security check. The fear of uncertainty can be overwhelming. But what if you had the tools to reframe this moment as an opportunity rather than a crisis? And that's what we're going to do tonight. Together, we're going to explore some practical steps and faith driven strategies to navigate financial insecurity with wisdom, resilience, and trust. The intention of tonight's session is to cultivate peace and reframe fear as an opportunity for growth and transformation, and to be at peace. That's what I want for you tonight, is to be at peace. If this message resonates with you, we'd love to welcome you into the small community, but it's growing. Please subscribe to our channel and join us weekly as we uncover strategies to prosper and thrive, even in uncertain times. So let's get to the critical question. What happens if your Social Security is suspended? What do you do? Well, what I would do is to check my status. You can do this by going online in the comfort of your own home, call your local Social Security office, or if you are abroad, you can call the international office. And I have this information listed. If you like for me to send it to you in a little cheat sheet, I can do that, but you're going to have to leave your email for me in the chat box if you don't mind. But for those of you who can't do that, the international number that I would use if I were living abroad is 410 965 7306. Again, I'm going to repeat. The international phone number, if you're living abroad, is 410 965 7306. Now, if you're living in the United States, just call your local Social Security office. I live in Maryland. So the number that I would call is 1 800 772 1213. If you don't live in Maryland, just call the local office in the state that you live in and talk with an agent. Now, let's after you check your status, you can go online to do that. And remember, in 2024, when I checked my status online, they were asking all of us who were Social Security recipients and citizens to create a special ID so that that ID can immediately identify you. And so I had to go through that process of doing that last year. And you will probably still have to do that if you're living in the United States. I don't know whether or not you have to do it if you're living internationally, but it's just something that you have to do. They're doing it to everyone now, and you can use that ID more readily. It can benefit you more quickly if you do that. And once you do that, I have a personal record that I go to every time that I access my Social Security information. I have it jotted down, recorded, and put in a safe place. So all I have to do is open up a file and get that information, click a link, and I'm right there. And you can check whether or not your status is active or not. I just checked mine a couple of days ago and it said active. If your Social Security records don't say active, I would call and talk with someone at the Social Security office and they can assist you with that. But what I want you to know is I want you to relax because this challenge is fixable. Okay? So, I'm going to be talking now about some reasons why your benefits or our benefits may be suspended. And then afterwards, we're going to be talking about how to stay grounded and secure while dealing with these uncertainties. And we're going to be listing some practical steps to protect your financial stability at home or abroad. So let's get to some reasons why your Social Security may have been suspended. Let's talk about living abroad first, since maybe a lot of people will be living abroad here, expating out of the United States, and depending on their Social Security. If you did not receive your benefits, I believe the major reason why it could have been suspended is because you failed or you forgot or you mailed or it got lost, the SSA 7162 form. Now, that's a form that's sent out, and I'm sure a lot of people who are living abroad know about this form. It's a form to verify whether or not you can continue receiving your eligibility Social Security benefits if you live outside of the United States. And you have to do that every year. And you may have forgotten to send it. It may have gotten lost. It may have gotten misplaced. And if you changed addresses, they may not have your updated address. So that's probably the biggest reason why it got suspended. Now, I'm going to list some other reasons why it could have been suspended. And if this is so, just contact your Social Security office and get it straightened out. And don't panic because this challenge is fixable. Some other reasons why you may have had your funds suspended or you failed to provide some necessary information that they need. Quick fix. Download the form, send the information in, mail it. Unfortunately, they will not accept PDF forms or email with that request. You must send it in by mail. Now, why they don't accept it, I don't know. You can talk with them about that, but I wouldn't argue with them. I would just do it. The other reason is you may be engaging in some fraudulent activity. I don't know. I'm not a judge. I'm not judging you. But if you are, you can talk to the agent about that. You may have a change in your medical status, indicating that you're no longer disabled, or you may be working above the substantial gainful activity level. Now, when the last time I checked, as of 2024, the substantial gainful activity called the SGA level for receiving Social Security disability benefits for a person who is non-blind is $1,550. And for a person who is blind, that monthly benefit is $2,590, meaning you may not qualify for benefits if you earn above these amounts. So, uh, if the SSA cannot locate you due to an invalid address, that would lead to undelivered checks as well. I have to answer this text. I think it's one person trying to get in. Um, So those are some reasons. And if you fall in that category, then call your Social Security office. If you don't fall in that category and check has been stopped, then just call the office and find out. Talk to an agent and discover why you're not receiving it. Now, I do want to say to you that this is not my expertise. I did get a lot of this information from another site, and I'm going to list that site in the chat. And if you'd like for me to send you this cheat sheet that I have with all this information on it and the website that I got this information from, I will do that. My expertise is helping people to neutralize the fear and to create a new mindset so that you reframe this challenge as an opportunity for growth. There's no need to panic. Everything can be resolved. And I can assure you that not that having your funds suspended is fixable. And I talk from experience because I helped a family member restore their Social Security account. And as a result, it took us a little while to do it because his circumstances were dire. And I'm sure your circumstances is a little bit different. But it did get resolved. Unfortunately, I had to contact the senator's office. And as a result of contacting the senator's office, Senator Van Hollen, I had to contact him because he was the senator of Maryland at the time. He did take my case up. He's a lawyer. And I had to present my case, present evidence and everything. And he took it up. And, I helped a family member restore their Social Security funds that had been stolen, and he didn't know how it got stolen. But they did an investigation when we went to Social Security. Now, remember, I did this during the time of COVID. And during that time, sometimes I would sit with my family member in the car waiting for Social Security to pick up the phone. Sometimes it took 30 minutes. I just put the phone there on the dashboard and just let it ring. And it rang for about 30 minutes sometimes, because no one would answer the phone. But I'm resilient, I'm relentless, and I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that this situation could be remedied because my family member really wasn't at fault. His Social Security number had been stolen. And I think I can provide some clarity about that as well, because after his account was reestablished and it was being funneled into the PNC Bank on an account that the PNC Bank didn't recognize. So I know it was going to a foreign country. But as I went to lunch one day and I met this young man and we were talking, and he told me that there were some people who were working in this little town that he drove through, and he met some people, and he said that they were paying people who were drug addicted for their social security number. And I believe that's really how it got stolen, because I couldn't understand how his number could have gotten stolen, but it did. And it was going into PNC Bank. And we had to get in contact with Social Security, and also we had to contact Senator Van Hollen's office for this to get straightened out. And we tried to straighten it out ourselves during COVID. Well, it was so slow process. It felt like we were moving through molasses. But after Senator Van Hollen took our case, it moved very rapidly. And we started to get people to respond to us. Before then, they really wasn't paying much attention to us because, they didn't feel that, they had any responsibility to respond during COVID, although I knew that they did. But anyway, it did get resolved and the funds were released. Now, it did take us some time for that to happen, but I would say that if this happened to you, just make sure that you had some funds on hand to handle an emergency such as this, at least 3, maybe 4 months, because I'm sure it wouldn't take you that long to get it reestablished, but it took us that long because of the dire situation of a family member. So the second thing that I would like to talk about is how do you stay grounded and secure if you're dealing with this kind of uncertainty, which would probably affect most of us the same way. It would feel very overwhelming, especially if you're overseas and you're depending on this money to pay your rent and buy your groceries. It could be overwhelming for some people. But let me talk about how we can stay grounded during these times, and how I've used these techniques that I'm going to share with you to remain grounded, because I've had to deal with a lot of situations in my own life that were fear based that I had to overcome. But I just stayed the course. I've always been a very prayerful person. And I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that God was and is the governing force that guides my life. And I rested in that knowing. And as a result, everything just worked out beautifully. So let's talk about how you can stay grounded as well. The first thing that I would like you to know is fear. Whenever you are experiencing fear of any kind, just know that fear is a mental concept as well as freedom. Fear is a mental concept, and fear really is not grounded in any law or principle. It really isn't. So that's why you may hear people saying fear, it doesn't have any power. Once you walk through the fear and know that, this fear doesn't have the power to stop me, then you begin to realize how unstable or unprincipled fear is. If you can walk through fear and it doesn't really consume you or stop you from doing anything, you realize that fear, you don't have to be afraid of fear. You may be experiencing, okay, if you experience it, just acknowledge that I'm fearful and do whatever you need to do to get through it. Now, I am a person who's always been grounded in truth and faith. My father was a minister, so I always have used spiritual principles to quiet the fear that I may be experiencing. I always go to the Bible, and one of my favorite biblical scriptures is "Fear not, I'm with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God." That's in Isaiah 41:10. And, it may take some time for you to ponder this scriptural passage and realize the power that's in it once you begin to spiritualize your thoughts with scripture. You begin to understand the power of these scriptural passages, which, when you do gain some understanding, they begin to birth or flower your being in ways that you couldn't even begin to realize. You begin to understand more fully the power that's in a scriptural passage, because you begin to feel peaceful, because you know that this is the truth that you're studying. And there's power in the truth. There's not power in fear. And so when your mindset begins to change and shift based on the deepening of your understanding of these scriptural passages, or reading the Bible, or reading an article about overcoming a challenge that someone has, then you begin to know, like I know, that divine love has met and always will meet every human need that you have and that I have. Now, I'm not saying that divine love will meet all of your wants and desires, because I haven't found that to be true. But I have found it to be true that divine love, some people call God, meets all of my human needs. And all I have to do is rest in the knowing that I and my Father are one. And when I rest in this consciousness of knowing, and I surrender my will, because you have to do something. You can't go to the Father and commune with the Father and maintain your will. You have to yield your will. You have to let go of your will, your desires, whatever they are, whether it's hate, whether it's judgment, whether it's want or desire, and just relax in the secret place of the Most High. Just relax in that place. And that place is within your own consciousness. And you get real still, and you can feel the power of God's love and God's peace. And once you do that, and you yield your will, and you just relax and listen for God's presence, then that presence will speak through you, because now you're a clear instrument to receive the presence of good, the presence of love, the presence of harmony, which we call grace. And once we receive that, sometimes we receive it in a feeling. It's a knowing that we have. Sometimes we experience it in a voice, a still small voice. Sometimes it's a gentle nudge. Sometimes it's a phone that rings and someone gives you some information. It happens in a number of different ways. But once you receive that grace, you are at peace. You feel the peace. And this is how God loves you. This is how this presence speaks through you and supplies you with everything that you need to get through or to resolve any challenge that comes before you. Because here's what I've learned in my spiritual discovery, is that every challenge that comes to me is a temptation for me to unfold to a greater depth of understanding. And if I take on the challenge and I push through this challenge, knowing that God is the only governing force in the world, there are no kings or no queens. Only God, divine love, is the governing force that governs my life as well as yours, as long as you yield to this presence and allow it to govern. Now, you can't govern. You can't allow God to govern if you have your will and you're not going to yield your will. In other words, you have to be submissive and just allow this presence to flow through you and speak through you and to guide and govern you. And if you're willing to yield and if you're willing to listen, it will always govern you in a right way, in a powerful way, with divine love, with wisdom, with intellect, and you will be safe in this presence. I've used this technique all of my life. My father was a minister. So as a female, I decided that I wanted to, live a single lifestyle because I wanted to focus on my spiritual studies. And I learned how to let go and to be submissive to this presence. It was difficult for me because I always had a very strong will, but I've learned how to do it. And especially in great need, I know how to surrender my will. And this will has always governed me and will govern you in any instance. I don't care where you are in the world, whether you're abroad, whether you here in the United States, whether you're next door, whether you're on the street, wherever you are. This is the governing force that guides and protects us if we allow it to. So, those are some of the ways that you can stay grounded and feel secure. And also, um, I lost my train of thought. But anyway, remember, divine love has met and always will meet every human need. And when you dwell on that, this higher understanding that you come to realize that, this understanding lifts your thoughts to the secret place of the Most High, where God's children dwell in harmony and brotherly love. And you're satisfied with the completeness of God's creation in that space because God is whole, present, and complete. You don't have to add anything to God. And when you're resting in that still small, in that consciousness, the dwelling in that consciousness of love, you know that God is complete, and all you have to do is to listen for this guidance, and it will guide you in a way that nothing else could or will do, because you'll know that it's guiding you with wisdom and with love. And so you just surrender and obey it. Okay? So now that we got that out the way, let's talk a little bit about some practical steps that you can use to protect your financial stability at home or abroad. And one of the steps that I'm taking to protect my financial stability here is, I've been hearing that you may not want to keep all of your cash into your bank account because there's some talk out there that the banks may not be as secure as they once were. And if you wake up one day and find all your cash gone, then how will you survive? So, what I'm going to do in a couple of days is I'm going to find a high yield savings account, and I'm going to maybe position some of cash that I may have in the bank in there just to protect it. And that's one step that I'm going to take. And I'll feel good about that because I'm going to do some research on that. And that's one step that I can take that's practical that I can implement in a couple of days to protect my financial stability right now. So, and another thing that you can do that's mental is and unrelated to the environmental surroundings is to just start recognizing that we are free to think, and nobody can take that away from you. You can be in an abusive situation. You can be, in jail abroad, and you can still think. No one knows that you're thinking. And if you can think, you can pray. No one knows you're praying. You don't have to say it outright. You don't have to talk to God, because I don't think prayer is talking. I think prayer is listening. If God is whole, present, and complete, why do I need to talk with God? God knows what my needs are. All I have to do is get still, surrender my will, and to listen for this presence to speak through me. But I have to be willing to do that. And no one can tell if I'm thinking or if I'm praying. I can be quiet. You don't have to speak the words. You can just be quiet and reflect within, commune within, and do your prayer work there. And once you begin to feel that you have the freedom to think, that's your first step. That's something you can do mentally, and you can do it anywhere. You can do it riding in a car. You can do it walking outside. You can do sitting, waiting in line, or standing in line. There's nothing and no one that can prevent you from doing that. It's the simplest thing, but it's the first step. And as you ground that step, and that concept of freedom begins to expand. And then once it expands, it begins to be expressed in your outward circumstances, and you begin to see it. Okay. So while most of us will never know the narrow boundaries of being in prison, most of us probably won't know that. But I'm sure we all have times when we felt imprisoned by fear, by financial challenges, by disease, by pain, or the subject that we're talking about tonight. Your Social Security has been suspended. But just keep in mind, we have the same promise that most of us have discovered in the Bible. I'm sure some of you are Bible token people and very spiritually based people. And so in the Bible, Jesus says, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. That's found in John 8:32. And so you may be asking yourself, freedom from what? Well, you can freedom from feeling limited by your circumstances, whatever they are. And what truth will set you free? Well, there are many. However, a basic truth is that we are made in the image, likeness of God, divine love. The Bible verse that states we are made in the image, likeness of God is Genesis 1:27, which says, so God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female, created them. So we have inherited our identity from our creation. And what or who could limit or constrain spirit? I haven't found anything, because there is nothing that can limit or constrain spirit. Freedom must be an aspect of spirit's expression, and this expression is included within us, because remember, when we're made in the image and likeness of God, we are entitled to our Father's inheritance of peace and love and supply and intelligence and confidence and joy and everything that God is. You are entitled to that. That's who you are. However, it requires you to acknowledge that and to practice being that, because that's who you are. So we all have a role in playing in this play, in bearing witness to a love that is God as the only true motivator of each of us. There's only one attraction, and that attraction is God. And remember, God is the only governing force that there is. There are no kings, there are no queens. We're all governed by divine love. And this love is all powerful, it's omnipresent, everywhere present, it's omniscient, it is all knowing, all wisdom, It is omni-active. It is all active, everywhere active, 24/7. And so that's who we are. There's nothing any more powerful than God. All we have to do is know this power. We are one with it so that all of our needs can be met 24/7. Always, always, always. Realizing and praying from this standpoint for a neighborhood, a community, or world is bound to have a healing effect. So, this is what we call loving our neighbor as ourselves. We know what's happening in the world, we know what's happening in the United States. We can all pray, we can all rest in the secret place of the Most High, rest in this all knowing, all present, ever available, ever active presence, and just reflect and know that this is the only power there is in the world. There is no one who's king. God is. So, just to recap, we know that losing our benefits is temporary and it is fixable. How we stay grounded is by spiritualizing our consciousness, feeding it with thoughts of love, such as joy, peace, freedom. And when we reflect on these qualities and begin to understand them, then they become a part of our consciousness. This is what we call spiritualizing our consciousness. And as this becomes a part of our consciousness, then we unfold in more spiritual ways. We become full of blooms. We become more intelligent beings, more loving beings, more harmonious beings, because we're feeding and nurturing this consciousness that we are with divine love, with the seeds of love. We are nurturing, planting, we're fertilizing this consciousness that we are with the seeds of love. And therefore, we are blooming in the world. We're becoming more and more. Our understanding is growing and deepening. And so we are able to look upon others non-judgmental. We're able to love our neighbor as ourselves. We're able to be more harmonious and joyful rather than to give in and become seduced by fear and anger. And lastly, to know the truth about who we are. Who we are made in the image of divine love and infinite wisdom. Isn't that wonderful? That's who we are. So that's who we're destined to be. So I think that is all that I have for you tonight. Thank you for being present. And I hope you have enjoyed this. And if it has benefited you in any way, please subscribe to our channel. I'd love for you to join us next week at 7. I don't know what God has for me, but we're going to have another topic that's hot. Bye. Thank you for joining. Play a little music for you.